Hi, my name is Stephen Benjamin. I decided to make this video for you to get a sense of me and the way I work and think to help you decide if we are a good fit or not. The way that I work, I suspect that some people will find it really appealing and other people maybe not so much. So my hope is that you get meaningful information in order to help you make a decision about who to team up with. And also, I hope to give you some useful information about how to pick a therapist, even if you don't think we are the best match. So, let me give you some details about my approach. In my view, good therapy sometimes means moving towards feelings that make you uncomfortable. I might ask questions that challenge you if I think you might be missing something or getting in your own way in a manner that you don't even realize. I'm going to be listening to what you are saying and also to what you are not saying. If I sense that you are avoiding certain kinds of feelings or exiling certain parts of yourself, I might invite you to explore that. Now, I'm not going to challenge you out of the blue in some kind of abrupt way. In fact, one of the things I find myself saying quite often when I work is something like this. Look, there's a question right here that might sound challenging. Are you up for that? I often get a yes response to this, but sometimes I hear some form of the sentence, no, Steve, I just want you to listen to me. And when that happens, this is what I do. I just listen. Because I believe in pacing, and if you set a boundary, I'm going to respect that. In fact, I experience that as you bringing your own leadership into the session, which has great value in itself, because sometimes I have something rich to offer, and sometimes you know better. We navigate that together as a team, in my view. I find it important in general to be attuned to your level of internal activation. If any one of us is too activated, and in particular near overwhelm, there is no learning there. I know that when I am flooded with too much feeling, I can't think straight. So in our work together, discovering ways to find your ground again is a really important component of the work, and this is a skill you already have and can learn to get better at. There are also times when therapy is not about moving towards discomfort and is more about collaboration in other ways. Having a space to think out loud, for instance, and the freedom to edit your own thought stream as it unfolds. There can be something especially enriching in starting a sentence and not knowing how you are going to end it, and having the freedom and safety to discover that kind of unfolding. The other dynamic that might be useful for you to know about how I work is that I routinely spend the last 5 or 10 minutes of each session to review the session that we just had. I am particularly interested in any negative or critical feedback that you can give me around my participation, my actions in the session, exploring moments that I was maybe muddled or unclear, or I said something that just didn't sit right with you. In the past, for instance, I have been told that I talked too much, or talked too little, and that more feedback is wanted, or that I was directing the focus in one area when there was a preference for a different focus. Even down to things like, Steve, your clock ticks really loud and it bugs me. I have built this into my practice through the years because I have found it to be a reliable goldmine. If the work we do together gets off track even a little bit, and that gets identified quickly so that we have a course correction, that can make all the difference, so that we are back on the same team, going in the same direction together. Getting where you want to go is the main thrust of everything that session hour is about. In fact, I have spent the last few years statistically tracking outcomes of the work that I do, and I can see the difference readily when I utilize the session this way. So that's just something to know and be prepared for. Frankly, I can be kind of a pest about getting feedback from you about the session. The exception to that is when I sense that pursuing this feedback interferes with progress. Now, I view psychotherapy in an overarching way as simply a form of learning. It might involve learning how to recalibrate your internal system when you're overwhelmed and find a way to get recentered as I mentioned before. This skill is really empowering as it develops. Sometimes the learning might revolve around things that are happening in the session between you and me, and exploring those so that you can become more aware of all kinds of feelings, such as irritation or warmth, and many others, and be able to express those feelings. And sometimes the learning can involve the delightful discovery that your thoughts can be investigated in really fascinating ways so that you end up having an even playful relationship with your thoughts instead of just letting them run the show. Also, before I end, I want to say a few words about psychotherapy in general and outcome research in particular. In countless studies in the last 40 years, psychotherapy as a field has demonstrably and statistically been shown to be significantly effective. I highlight this because I fully realize that I am not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And if you sense that we are not going to be a good fit, I would encourage you to see someone, because the chances of you getting something helpful and meaningful out of the process is really high. There is some other really interesting data coming out of outcome research. For instance, there is no correlation between positive outcomes in psychotherapy and the model or approach that the therapist takes, or the academic degree of the therapist, the gender of the therapist, or even the number of years that a therapist has been practicing. All of these factors, surprisingly, do not correlate with better outcomes. That being said, the research also points strongly to the evidence that some therapists reliably get better outcomes than others. This is still being studied about why this is so. There is one notion that is gaining traction, and that is that therapists that get better outcomes engage in something called deliberate practice, as opposed to just practice. Examples of deliberate practice include having sessions videotaped and reviewed by trusted colleagues or supervisors. Therapists that get better outcomes seem to focus more on patterns in their own work where they more predictably stumble, and work on developing in those specific areas instead of just going to seminar after seminar of the latest approach. Also, better therapists just seem to think more about their clients when they are not in session with them and reflect on what they might have missed or done better. So if you are thinking about jumping into therapy land, you have a right to ask the therapist what they do to get better at the work that they do. Anyway, in closing, if you are watching this video, you are probably seriously considering engaging in a therapy process, either with me or with someone else. I believe there is an element of courage in taking that step. I suppose it remains to be seen whether you will give yourself credit for that. Thank you for listening. I wish you all the best on your journey.